begins. We load in to Cosmic Sapphire, and in the top left, we have the red Protoss player. He is Hellraiser.
In the bottom right side, we're looking at the main base of that Polish veteran. Started off in Brood War a long time ago. Has had a very successful StarCraft 2 career so far, and he's still on Team Liquid. This is MaNa.
As we get ready to see what's going to be rolling up. I guess low-key shout-out, it is October. Hellraiser, great horror movie if you guys are still looking around for things to spook yourself with, as both players send their probes out, and well, they should be able to see each other and know, okay, nothing out of the ordinary just yet.
Nope. I mean, it is obviously very early, but it's kind of the standard at this point to scout very early. In case your opponent goes for pylon, low ground, gateway, low ground, you don't want to see them get that nexus down before the cybernetic score. Because if that happens, you're really putting yourself in a spot where you basically have to all in them. MaNa is keeping his probe in the center of the map though, and that's kind of catching my attention, because that is not a normal place for a probe to just be AFK. So I guess we're going to build, I'm going to say a robo nade. If I know my MaNa, I think that's going to be a robo in the center of the map.
I like it. That middle spot where the workers go up and pass each other has been a very popular proxy location, which has also made it kind of an easy read. A lot of them have been scouted when they're put there. So MaNa stepping off to the side, just a little bit of something that I like. And even if he doesn't proxy it, you know, probe walks around, doesn't see second pylon. You ask yourself, where could it be?
Yeah, exactly. Since he's sending the probe away immediately now, it does not seem like he is going to proxy something with it. Hellraiser is going to open up with Adepts. MaNa is going to open up with Stalkers. The Adepts most of the time lead into a Stargate, but you can actually do a lot of weird stuff with Adepts. This time around, it's not going to be that weird stuff. It will be Stargate. The main reason is obviously that Adepts take a bit less gas than Stalkers do, so you can still get the Stargate down very quickly while still building 2 gateway units, and that's why it's often Adepts into Stargate. MaNa's going to get his own Stargate. Are you ready for motherships with armor, Nate? No,
give me that +1 air armor mothership timing, Roddy. I need it. Okay, I didn't know that I would enjoy it as much as I did, but now all I can do is think about when I'm going to get it again. It's a bad slippery slope here on the meme builds for PvP this week.
Yep. MaNa is going to build a pylon temporarily in the natural of Hellraiser, but he finds the Adepts. That's a big catch, and I think with the good Stalker movement, we will absolutely be able to pick up 1 Adept kill, and 1 Adept is obviously a lot less terrifying than 2. MaNa almost lost the probe there that he wasn't supposed to lose, but that won't happen either. He's going to be loving this start, mate. And you open up with 4 Stalkers, and you already killed 1 Adept. The other Adepts won't do anything. MaNa did let the pylon finish, so that's of course a bit of a donation. And now it's Oracle versus Oracle, but this should technically favor MaNa since he's the player with 4 Stalkers, and that's obviously a lot better than 2 Stalkers and 1 Adept. Soon 0 Adepts.
Yeah, and we have a Void Ray being built in the main base over here for Hellraiser, so getting himself set up. He has the battery on the high ground. Seems like he's expecting
that's a misread. Yeah,
a very big attack that's not coming.
That is just a proper misread. The Adepts didn't see the Nexus at first. Obviously, that second pylon in the beginning of the game was missing. So you're spot on. Hellraiser is expecting MaNa to be aggressive with 3-gate or 3-gate robo. And now Hellraiser is going to see, oh my goodness, you have an expand. That's very annoying. At least the Void Ray somehow works on an Oracle. MaNa is too focused to be chuckling, but I think if this was a ladder game or one of these amazing MaNa streams, he would absolutely be chuckling to himself on, why on earth do you have a Void Ray?
Yeah, seriously. And the Oracle can't do a whole lot. Like you were saying, the Stalkers are at home. If you're MaNa, there's very little pressure. Your Nexus is going to be up way faster than your opponent. You can get the probe count rolling along. So Hellraiser is going to try and turn things back on their head and move out. But how much are we expecting him to get done setting up with even the stasis trap defensively too?
Yeah, that's super smart, as that Oracle does fly in. The stasis could potentially be very big here if Hellraiser doesn't see it. It's very smart though that MaNa did take this serious. As funny as the Void Ray is, and even though Hellraiser a long time ago was a big fan of playing Void Rays into Immortals, Flux Veins, he was actually very good with that weird style. But it's one of these things where the opening should be bad, but if you don't respect it and you're trying to defend with 4 Stalkers against 3 Stalkers in a Void Ray with Prismatic Alignment, you could solidly be in a lot of trouble. So it's smart that MaNa did take it serious and did get the battery.
Yeah, Definitely a good move there. Revelation cast on the main by Hellraiser's Oracle. He just wants to maintain that vision. MaNa, meanwhile, moving into his blink, almost done just about as a forge finishes up for Hellraiser, so he can start to get aggressive if he wants to. I think that Candy feels, I don't know, I don't think the Void Ray is actually going to be that big of a threat if it doesn't have the shield battery nearby, but there is one in the main base, so he's kind of ready for everything because of that misread we were talking about earlier on. You know, he still has some defenses.
But what still sucks though is that he doesn't have blink, right? And stalkers without blink have such a hard time catching up to stalkers with blink. And this is where MaNa's gonna make his move, gets into the main base, could maybe just go for a pylon. He's gonna activate Pulsar Beam as he's gonna try to fight these stalkers. But in the end, Hellraiser does make it back in time, only losing 3 probes. MaNa can't blink right now for a split second, so he's gonna try to kill that Void Ray, does kill the Void Ray. Now it's time for MaNa to get the hell out of there. And Hellraiser wishes that he could follow. Wow, he could have killed the Oracle, by the way. I love how the Oracle of Hellraiser just very casually flew over 7 stalkers of MaNa.
Don't mind me just going home. No big deal. And, oh, little stasis trap. Now, does he see it? Yeah, I think he recognizes it might be a bit dangerous to go up there. It's nice bait because the Revelation, he saw all the stalkers were still in the natural, and I think he just tagged him again. So maintaining a lot of vision, MaNa can see where all of these units are moving. And now that his blink is done, Hellraiser might try to make a little jump up for that Oracle.
I was playing a dangerous game there because I actually thought he was going to lose his Oracle.
Wow,
he's still playing a dangerous game as he's just going to blink into the natural. It obviously means he's stuck. He's going to have to recall out. I think we lose at least 1, if not 2 stalkers in the end. 2 stalkers with 3 probes. Honestly, that was not the greatest move. But it's something that MaNa can afford because MaNa did go up to 3 bases a lot quicker than Hellraiser did in this game. So if enough time goes by, he will have an economic lead and he will be able to recover these stalker losses.
Yeah, and he did have himself kind of well set up defensively. He's a pretty good read on where Hellraiser's army has been majority of this time, so not too shabby. What's interesting is the Warp Prism's about to finish. He's got the 3rd base set up. He's adding a few gates and getting +1, but that +1 is finishing a little bit faster for Hellraiser. And Hellraiser's getting Immortals, so he'll be setting himself up to defend against this, but are those things going to come in time for MaNa's attack? At least the +1 does.
The gateway advantage is so big though, right, for MaNa. MaNa's gonna have 6 gates against only 2 gateways, and Immortals will be sick if we can actually get our Immortal count up. But MaNa is gonna shark around. He's gonna come on top of this Nexus, get a lot of damage on it immediately, and with only 2 gates, Hellraiser's just in a lot of trouble. He really needs the Immortal. He really needs that battery to finish up. The Nexus is taking a lot of damage. We can save it with battery overcharge, and that's exactly what he does. MaNa, you cannot be too stubborn. He really wants it. He does get it in the end, but he's gonna pay a pretty hefty price. I don't know, I think just taking a fight would have probably been better, as now he's gonna lose his Oracle as well. Getting a Nexus kill was awesome, Nate, but that was a very expensive Nexus kill.
Yeah, he's making some YOLO moves here, and okay, Hellraiser starts up a Resonating Glaives, which is fascinating, as he also has his +2 coming through. But that upgrade advantage, like you said, you're just sitting there and tanking it, but your opponent has that upgrade over you, so you're not winning the small trades without perfect micro, and delays a little bit of income. Well, maybe this is where those gateways kick in, though, because like Kev, you said it, he's got 7 warp gates right now to 4 of Hellraiser, so while those units might be a little bit better, but MaNa can build a lot more.
But MaNa forgot charge, man. Like, he was gearing up for the 2nd wave right now with a whole bunch of Zealots with charge. He doesn't have charge. He still is going to go for it. Blinks forward, snipes the Immortal. And this time around, we obviously can't overcharge. So the slow Zealots from MaNa are actually still going to be very useful here, as the Stalkers blink forward one more time. And Hellraiser did not expect this attack, but it's happening. We could have another battery overcharge here. You should battery overcharge right here, right now. You can lose the Immortal. Does not want to do it too early. Feels that he needs it a bit later. I don't know, these forward blinks. Hellraiser just cannot match the production of MaNa. 2 gateways, in the end it was 4, but 4 against 7. Good call there by MaNa to blink forward, snipe those Immortals. And despite the fact that he forgot charge, he still just decided to go for it, which turned out to be a pretty brilliant call.
Yeah, absolutely well done there by MaNa. And that game is very, very scrappy. Very, very scrappy game. You know, you had that thought that, okay, MaNa's going to bring it to me early on. That pylon was kind of put out there. We weren't sure if MaNa wanted to do something a little bit cheeky there. And it ends up just being that Hellraiser was investing in a lot of things that just didn't quite pay off yet, right? You wanted to get the Immortal out. The Immortal finished and had to come all the way down from the main base over to that 3rd. could not get there in time. And I guess MaNa just forcing out that overcharge, having the Warp Prism and 3 extra gateways. If it definitely felt like a bit of a stretch without charge. That's like oh, I might throw the game here moment. But then I think he realized he has better upgrades, but he just can't build that. He doesn't have that many stalkers.
Yep, it's in the end of the day, it was a numbers game, and the numbers heavily favored MaNa, and he had that prism, so he could still reinforce. And it's very good for MaNa to be as decisive as he is there. He sees an Immortal, and that Immortal was a bit too exposed. If the Immortal's in the back of the army, blinking forward is super risky, because if you then don't get it with the first 2 shots, it's gonna run back, maybe runs back towards the battery. Now it was a bit in the front. Stalker's obviously able to blink forward, get right on top of it, and then by the time that the second Immortal showed up, the first one had long fallen, and that just made it a very doable attack for MaNa in the end. So we have loaded into Data C for round 2 of this PvP. In the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base of our Ukrainian Protoss. Finds himself in an 0-1 deficit, loading into Data C. This is Hellraiser.
And his opponent on the east side in blue, repping Team Liquid, he is MaNa. Always nice to see a little bit of cheeky MaNa matchup. You know, I love that he is such a tenacious player, and he's, you know, you mentioned, but he makes a lot of content out there. He's a funny guy. He's certainly one of those people that sets a great example for the candor that we want to have here in the StarCraft community. Just a real wholesome dude who's always giving it his all and providing some very entertaining games here at the highest level in the meanwhile.
He's got a very amazing puppy as well, mate.
Oh, everybody's got dogs now. It makes me very happy. Wardy's got a golden retriever. This is freaking adorable. I'm like, if only we didn't live on the other side of the planet. You know, we got to make the StarCraft caster compound one day. Get all the esport people together again.
Very interesting start here by Hellraiser. As the observer is showing us, Hellraiser has gone for pylon, gateway, pylon, full wall off, cybernetics core behind it, but not really mining a whole lot of gas. So he's definitely aiming to get a Nexus up as quickly as possible. This is a very different way of doing things, Nate. I have seen a lot of PvP openers. This is not one that I'm actually very familiar with yet, but kind of cool, I guess. Don't have to worry about a pro being annoying and blocking your Nexus from going down.
Yeah, so he can just get it up immediately. And for MaNa's part, he has to deal now with the pylon in his base, trying to decide. Had the Stargate queued, pulled back, now queued up again. And actually where he's placed it, I think, is going to give him a full wall as well, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you're correct. That's definitely a full wall off.
So kind of interesting here then. So both of them kind of blocking themselves in. Obviously, Hellraiser can kill that pylon a lot more easily down the line. Not as much to give up, but what do you make of this? I mean, he still can't build the Nexus either, and he's blocked in.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It indeed does not feel like a moment where it was very necessary for MaNa to go for a full wall off. But maybe he went for a full wall off because he was worried about this being a fake from Hellraiser. But Hellraiser pretends to want a quick expand. Obviously, MaNa can't really scout behind it, but then suddenly it's not a quick expand, and it's just a 3-gate or a 4-gate.
That's true.
And maybe MaNa would think it'd be a lot easier to defend with a full wall off. He's going to see 2 Stalkers now and a Chrono Boost on the gateway.
So some mind games then, huh? Interesting. Very, very interesting mind games coming out here. Because Hellraiser, I mean, now he's just got his base up really fast, and he's going to be cranking out probes. But for MaNa's part, even though he is walled in, the Phoenix, of course, they fly. He can do a lot of scouting with those and continue to apply pressure, because he also knows that Hellraiser's going to have to kill one of his own pylons to get out of his base.
Yeah, I think Hellraiser will obviously just drop the Twilight Council, and he's going to try to go up to Blink, where he already has a Twilight on the way. Where is it? In the back of his main. So he's just going to try to play Blink Stalkers, but obviously off the bat of a very good economy. Meanwhile, MaNa right now has Phoenixes that I don't want to say are useless. If I was MaNa, even if I don't really want to play Phoenix here, and maybe the Phoenixes were more like in anticipation of an Oracle, I think I would build one more Phoenix. Because 2 Phoenixes have a very hard time killing probes, but with 3 Phoenixes, you can actually always just lift 1 probe and you one-shot it with the other 2 Phoenixes, and that will still give you a decent amount of value. So I definitely think going up to 3 is the correct call, and there's a small chance that MaNa will just double down on Phoenix and play Phoenix Immortal.
Yeah, definitely an option. 2 probes grabbed there. And with the forge coming up for MaNa, can move into some upgrades. And yeah, you're right. He has the robotics facility already. So the fact that he hasn't gotten the Twilight yet, I feel like is giving us that indication. It does feel like a very odd way for a PvP game to start.
Yeah, it's different. I'll definitely give you that much, Nate. This one is a bit different. MaNa's getting +1, so if he does go +1, like one thing he could also do, but that's not something we see ultra often, is just play Phoenix Zealot, but there we have the first Immortal on the way. So maybe he's gonna make some sort of a Phoenix Immortal random gateway attack. No charge, no blink, because he is doing something in the top left side as well. And maybe there's going to be like a little bit of a gateway explosion or a hidden nexus.
I like it. I like it.
One way, I guess, to deal with the fact that you're fully walled in and your opponent is fully walled in.
Yeah. 2 Protoss players fully walled in at 5.5 minutes is something that I don't think we've seen even in the 500 PvPs that we've cast in the last 7 days. So the Phoenix with the Observer can apply pressure. And, you know, of course, having Phoenix means that it's always going to be a little bit awkward for Hellraiser to try to move out because he'll constantly be coming in. Does lose one there, so that hurts. But to get his eyes on that warp prism, that's, I guess, what's going to open things up for Hellraiser because he can, of course, blink past that wall.
Can also pick up a probe and still expand, and that is what he's going to do by the looks of it. So he'll move out with the Blinky boys, but he also has picked up a probe, and he's still going to go up to 3 bases. Now the real question is, will Hellraiser ever think about a hidden base? I'll be honest, if I was playing the game that Hellraiser is currently playing, that's not really something I'm necessarily worried about, because if your opponent is playing Phoenix Immortals, we have a nice forward blink there, does not get the kill, but it's still so nice for the Stalkers to deal that amount of damage to a Phoenix. And now, like, I think the only thing that really matters for Hellraiser is obviously don't do something silly like blink on top of the Immortals, even though he has the numbers to maybe get the job done, but it would feel normally not necessary. If you just kind of chill here, if a minute goes by, Nate, that's, I think, when the spider senses start tingling of pro gamers. Like, wait a minute, if I'm going up to 3 bases, why am I on your side of the map and you're chilling on 2 bases in a game where not a whole lot has happened yet? That's when most of the time they will start checking for hidden bases.
Yep, and he recalled, by the way, 12 probes to that northwest expansion. I won't lie, I thought for a moment he might go in on the Immortals up the ramp, like you were saying, just because there's no shield, there are no shield batteries at all. Now the fact that there's 3 Immortals makes it obviously a lot more dicey, but yeah, I guess he still has the option to try and jump into the main base as well. The army's coming down the ramp too.
He definitely had a lot, and there's actually a good chance that if he would have YOLO blinked in, it would have worked. Instead, he's going to try to make some plays. He gets into the main base, gets on top of the Cyber Core and maybe a shield battery. Don't know why we let that battery live for so long. Ooh, that's a big army to recall. Somehow grabs every single unit. Well done. I would have definitely left a soldier or 2 behind. But at this point, Nate, if you're Hellraiser, aren't you like, wait a minute, like, you're not really doing a whole lot. Your main base was relatively empty. I'm on 3 bases.
Yeah,
nothing
like,
is happening here.
What are you playing at? What on earth is happening here? Because MaNa's Observer sees Hellraiser starting to saturate the 3rd base. He opened the door, somehow supply blocking himself in the process, and MaNa, he's been mining that top left for a little bit, so he's got some money. And now as he takes his quote unquote 3rd base, Hellraiser might be thinking to himself, oh, okay, he's just paranoid. He wants to have Immortals, but MaNa's spending a lot more money than he should have for a guy that's been turtling on 2 bases.
I gotta say, Hellraiser's army is very good right now against MaNa's army, though. What MaNa will have is maybe a couple of force fields to work with, as the Phoenixes are annoying one more time. They have killed 3 pros. With the batteries finishing up, I think MaNa might be all right. Without the batteries, though, this many Zealots is very problematic. And what Hellraiser could do is warp in 2 Archons as well. He has supply block, though, Nate. This is just gonna go with it without Archons. Then he has the Templar Archives, he has the gas. MaNa hallucinates a couple of Archons. They're gonna stoke up a bit of shot. I think the biggest problem here are the shield batteries. The Stalkers are in range of the Immortal. They were shooting at Zealots at first, but this is normally where Zealot Stalker is really powerful, and I think it's just a little bit too powerful here for MaNa to deal with.
Yeah, the Immortals were that was like the anchor there to try and keep it all together for him, and as those get picked off, then Hellraiser's Stalker count becomes even more terrifying. He does not have the answer. And High Templars, he's warping and trying to get more Archons. 2 of them just get killed. so not able to come in and bring that impact. The shield batteries are out of juice. That overcharge is not available, and MaNa's just trying to warp in slow zealots to push this away, but it is not going that well. Total unit count as he continues to reinforce from the prism. We've got 24 stalkers for Hellraiser to just 8 of MaNa, and the only other units he has are those Phoenix back in Hellraiser's base. So it's looking like this fourth is going to get smashed down, and Hellraiser continuing to plow through MaNa's defenses. You can't produce enough.
But what we do have to keep in mind is that MaNa actually still has more probes, and MaNa is actually he didn't really separate the gases there, but MaNa has +2. MaNa has more probes and +2. So in a weird way, this is still a very close and competitive game. The two Phoenixes are still going to be a little bit annoying. Hellraiser is probably like, bruv, what are we doing, man? You're super dead. But MaNa is really not that super dead, David. Two upgrade lead, and now he's going to try to jabate Hellraiser into taking a bad fight in range of battery overcharge. And Hellraiser, mate, this is where we really got to start checking for hidden bases. Because if there is no hidden base, you're absolutely golden. You've got fast units like Speed Zealots, rally one to the other side of the map as MaNa chases, almost gets the prism. This is still a game, though, Nate.
Yeah, and he's going to get that prism now as well, rewarded for continuing to hunt it. And it really all boils down to that ninja base, Roddy. He's been giving him so much money, and now there's probes in the bottom right. And I'm like, do you bring those bad boys home? Do you start another cheeky nexus eventually? I don't know. Feeling a little bit frisky on this one. And Phoenix fly through one more time and see that, not so much has changed. And he'll scout that Hellraiser is going to finally go for his own fourth base.
Those two Phoenixes have 4 and 7 kills, so even though it wasn't the biggest investment from MaNa, only made 4 Phoenixes in total. Got a couple of probes here and there. Hellraiser does finally have his own +1 right now, and that makes his army definitely a bit better than MaNa's army. He knows it, that's why he blinks forward. You gotta be careful with that prism. You don't want to be carrying too many stalkers, man. This was a bit of a overcommitment by MaNa, who ends up losing the 2 Phoenixes too. That's extra painful, because in a big fight, they could actually be somewhat useful in lifting an Immortal or two.
Yeah, definitely an awkward spot. Man, Hellraiser, he still wants to bring the pain, and yeah, I'm kind of with you, Rowdy. I'm surprised he hasn't really tried to make that effort to check for the ninja base, but maybe he's just looking to end it again with a big assault. But MaNa's starting to push that money through. Big concave on those +2 stalkers surrounding this. The Archon's getting some juicy shots into the clump side of the middle, but the probes have to come off the line, and that Immortal is still doing work. There are the Zealots coming forward. Get that front Immortal.
Man, really good micro with the Archons there, because Archons can feel a bit sucky in Stalker Immortal battles, and this was also mostly Stalker. But MaNa realized they were sitting ducks, so he picked them up, but then he dropped them immediately after Hellraiser blinked forward to kill that prism. But obviously, if you blink forward, you lose a lot of your micro potential till you blink units backwards one by one. And MaNa is now down 14 workers, but he does a +3 on the way. If he goes through the side blocker, he could have killed the prism. And will Hellraiser ever check the top left side? MaNa actually didn't build probes from that base for a while, probably because he was kind of worried about losing it, but now he is starting to build probes. He has taken both gases. Like, the man is going to be able to make Archons for days, Nate. That's going to be very good against Zealots, bad against Stalkers. Now MaNa's army, though, is in the random center of the map, and Immortal is misrallied. Good army movement by Hellraiser, and he caught MaNa napping.
Yeah, now the rest of his forces come up, and if he had 2 Immortals, this looks real gnarly. But for Hellraiser, it's just Stalkers suddenly. You have those tanky Archons that you mentioned you can build for days, and the Immortal Backbone with +3 attack. Yeah. MaNa being ahead on upgrades, definitely paying off big time. Those +3 Immortals are absolutely savage. 65 damage per hit to the Stalkers.
MaNa just had way too much money there again as well. He had Hellraiser. He had 1,200 minerals while floating around with a warp prism on the other side of the map, but not putting it in any warp in mode. It almost seems like he wants to wait to see what kind of units MaNa is making, because obviously he's been misreading this game, and he probably thinks like, I'm super far ahead. Like, I just need to make sure that I don't end up with only Zealots against a guy with 5 Archons, and if he goes Stalkers, I'm just gonna match his Stalker count. Man, he's still down an upgrade, and it's honestly, overall, Nate, it's a little problematic for Hellraiser, because he thinks he's ahead. He's not ahead. If anything, I actually feel like he is behind with every second that goes by.
Yeah, exactly, right? As this time has gone by and MaNa can make more and more use of those resources in that upgrade lead, he has been doing a lot of damage, kind of getting outnumbered on that side of the trade, though. And is this it? Is it the moment of realization?
Hellraiser?
Oh my goodness, how long have you had this? You click on the Click on the minerals. You're like, oh my goodness. Well, he is going to save the majority of those probes. Recalls them back to the main, and he's going to take a real fourth base. But look at this counterattack on the south side.
Yep, we have Zealots in the bottom right. We have Stalkers in the center. MaNa is going to make sure he doesn't lose too many Stalkers. Right now we have Immortals, Archons, and Battery Overcharge is being used there. It's actually kind of smart. It's keeping these Zealots alive a little bit longer. I don't know if Hellraiser really wants to take this fight, though. I see a lot of Immortals. I see a lot of Archons. And this is going to be knocked with the gate. He blinks forward, Nate. He says, I do want to take this fight.
And he gets rid of the Immortal. That was definitely one of the key ones there. Sentry, Guardian Shield trying to help, but Hellraiser has a lot of army still with this. His macro has been very strong. And now MaNa does not have that backup base to kind of rely on anymore. 65 to 70 probes. And I mean, that was Hellraiser's fifth base that we were seeing the contention take place over. MaNa, he now has to try to take that real fourth that Hellraiser knows about and will be making his way towards very soon.
Yeah, I mean, overall, that fight in the end worked out. Hellraiser is crazy with his forward blinks, but good target fire on the Immortals. He had the reinforcements. MaNa didn't have a prism there. Now he blinks. MaNa could blink on the Immortal or just go for it. He fires a Nova. The Nova connects with a lot, Nate, and the second Nova will also find a little connection, but Hellraiser did take out the base. That's obviously big. MaNa still has a little upgrade advantage here, and now technically has attack advantage as well, as he's the one going into Disruptors. Hellraiser is probably feeling like, okay, now I am actually ahead, because I am the one with 76 probes, and I'm the one with 5 bases, even going up to 6, but you still need to respect the Disruptors. And that's a lot of Disruptors.
Yeah, I think the biggest point you made is if he's going to do forward blinks, then the Disruptors can actually do a lot, especially because they were clicking on that Nexus. It felt like there was a moment where if he had adjusted it a teeny bit, he could have gotten enough Stalkers to flip it on its head, but did not go that far. Now Hellraiser's got his Prism. He wants to harass this base and is not ready yet, so we'll just try to do a little bit of damage to some probes while the Stalkers come into that bottom right third.
Forward blink. Oh, can they blink again? No, they cannot. Nope. So that's a big connection. And I like that zoning disruptor, just in case Hellraiser would think about blinking forward again. War Prism is getting chased down by a couple of Stalkers. The Zealots did manage to find some success. And we have 10 probes going down in the end. But Hellraiser needs to start thinking about he's building 6 probes at a time. That's pretty wild, as he's already at 83 workers now. 6 bases is great, Nate, but I feel like we've seen a couple of PvPs before where the guy with all the bases and all the probes does not end up winning if he has an inferior army. And Hellraiser needs to be careful that he doesn't put himself in that position.
Yeah, and that's a big one. I like that he's going for the Dark Templar with the blink. He's keeping the harassment options open, but that main army composition, thus far, MaNa has clawed his way back into it. The army supply difference earlier was catastrophic. Now he's only down about 10 Stalkers, but he has 5 Disruptors versus just 1 of Hellraiser. And really, if the next fight goes anywhere like the last couple, there's going to be a huge amount of losses from Hellraiser on the Stalker count, and that might be where the door opens. But as it stands, he is maxed out, and he's ready. He's ready to get some work done.
Yep, Stalkers, all of Hellraiser will blink back after seeing that the army of MaNa is here. At the same time, our Ukrainian Protoss is trying to get lucky with a couple of Zealots in the top side of the map, but MaNa is more than ready. Left safety Zealots behind. Hellraiser is so aggressive as he doesn't want Disruptor by himself, but needs to be careful here. Obviously, maybe looking for an opportunity to get on top of these Disruptors. He's got so much money, Nate. I guess if we are maxed out like he currently is, and we have this many probes, we need to start taking fights now. Whether they are pretty or ugly fights, it doesn't really matter. He wants to trade, right? Because he's got money for days, and that's something that MaNa does not have.
Yeah, going for the Disruptor shots to hit some of the Zealots at the front, but Hellraiser, he's learned a new ability in the last minute here. He's learned patience with these Stalkers. He's not just been YOLOing them in left and right, and I think that's why he's been able to keep the pressure up. A decent shot towards the edge there, but has a counter to the bottom right, and MaNa responds in kind. He has his Zealots ready to defend that as well, but 11 more charge lots getting added to the mix now.
And MaNa finds the 2 Disruptors. That is big. An Observer falls, but 2 Disruptors fall. Now Hellraiser says, all right, maybe your Disruptors are by themselves, but they are near batteries, they are near Zealots. MaNa is just taking some phenomenal fights here. What will he do? He will blink forward. Now a lot of balls will fly. And that means that Hellraiser is going to lose almost every single Stalker. Battery Overcharge is going to keep these Disruptors alive, most likely. Nope, one of them does die. good job. I mean, he has a monstrous bank, Nate, and I said it, like, even if the fights are pretty, he does need to trade, right? Because you can't let MaNa max out, then you're dead. So now he killed a few disruptors, killed the Nexus on the right side, and even if it, like, wasn't maybe the most cost-efficient thing, like, it's okay, because he's mining so much more.
Yeah, the money is still the biggest issue, because even though MaNa gets some big disruptor shots, like you said, it's okay to trade somewhat here. Bleeding out is not so bad. MaNa does not really have harassment options. He has not been able to get out on the map for a little while, so it's kind of just take these punches left and right and just hang in there. I think Hellraiser had the observer there for a little bit, had some vision over where MaNa's army was, so he comes over to that third once again. We see a couple of the obs get picked, but not much else, as Hellraiser also taking that ninja spot in the top left that MaNa had early on.
These Novas are scary. MaNa actually fires a Nova. There's an Archon there. That means his Archon is a bit low on HP. That connection, though, was good. Hellraiser has a lot of gateways, Nate, but I almost feel like if our economy is this big and we're spamming this many gateway units, I want to see more. Like, he is on 11 now. He's adding 2 more, so it's going to be 13. But I actually think that this is the kind of game where if you want to play the style that Hellraiser is playing, you want 20 as he blinks forward again. And it seems like he got a disruptor or 2. Mana supply is just plummeting at this point. Hellraiser is taking victories left, right, and center with a very explosive fun style.
He's eating the map. He's got the bottom right expansion as well now. Another disruptor for him does get grabbed in center field, but MaNa is like, he's taken some crazy trades. The resources lost is very similar, but resources gathered, I think, would tell a bit of a different story, because Hellraiser just has so much money sitting on a 3,000 minerals, 1,700 gas bank. So if he takes a big loss, he can just get a huge warp in round again to follow it up. And MaNa, he's got to kill like 2 whole armies without losing anything, and even that might not be able to do it here.
He needs to fire, and he does fire. Hellraiser not paying attention. Well, he wanted some big shots. Those are big shots. The thing is, he indeed needs to do that 2 or 3 more times. And I'm just now thinking back of that 1-0 lead for MaNa being the scariest timeline. It just seems to be the case again, man. He has made this game very complicated, very hard. The hidden base did not pay off in the end, and GG gets called. Hellraiser will tie things up. Don't think we can really call this like a throw from MaNa, because he was not necessarily ever ahead in this game, but there was definitely a moment where it looked more than all right, but it almost felt that he was afraid to fully saturate his hidden base. He recalled those 10 or so probes that you mentioned, and he kept it at that. He had 1 assimilator, but only 1 probe mining. It almost felt that he was very hesitant on fully saturating it until he felt that it was his only lifeline in the game. That's when he did it, and in the end, I almost also feel that he is the one who pulled Hellraiser towards the top left, right? By poking him with these stalkers, trying to escape to the top left, and only that's when Hellraiser actually found the base.
Yeah, and what a wild way. The game just felt so difficult to track from the very beginning. You had both players wall themselves in. Neither one of them was really being that aggressive. The Phoenix, it just didn't really seem like they were super impactful in what they were able to do for MaNa. So with that and that third base, everything just felt really awkward. It didn't seem like either of them were comfortable, but Hellraiser just sticking to his guns and having an overwhelming amount of gateway units the whole entire way through with some very aggressive blinks just paid off big time. And game number 3, Roddy, the series ends on Waterfall. So we condense things. We get a little bit smaller. That third base with the double ramp, of course, can be a little bit tricky to play around, but what's the expectations for this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess MaNa will once more go pylon gateway on the low ground, and I think that Hellraiser may do the same thing. If I know Hellraiser, I have the feeling that this game he is actually going to be very aggressive. He's a guy that can really play a series rather than a map, where in the second game he has this weird build where it's like, this could be a 1 base all-in. It wasn't, but it was hard for MaNa to figure it out. And there's a good chance that in the third game he makes it look the same, but then this time around it is actually something along those lines. But we will see. In the top right side, that red Ukrainian Protoss tying things up on Data C. Can he get the job done on Waterfall? This is Hellraiser.
And his opponent, we're talking about dangerous 1-0 leads. Can he break the curse? In the bottom left, he's Team Liquid's MaNa.
This is a very, very, very important series for MaNa. He's currently 2 and 3 in the group. And that means if he wins this, he secures his spot in 4th, and then he still has it all in his own hands, as his final match of this group will be against Battleby, but he also has the head-to-head record over Akron. If he loses this, well, that's where things can get very dicey and scary. Doesn't mean that he's out, but it means that he could be in a bit of trouble. He should be fine, but I don't know, Nate. That was a wild game that could have really played out in so many different ways because of the weird double wall-off that we were dealing with. Hellraiser being the one on 3 bases versus what was supposed to be 2, still being aggressive. And it just, I don't know, I felt that all hell broke loose. A lot of things happened. We blinked 3 times and Hellraiser had 9 bases and MaNa still had 4.
Yeah, exactly. Hellraiser did a really good job. I think we've been seeing that a lot today. Players are just making great moves to constantly be expanding while doing that pressure, and we're seeing it here today in this one. So for MaNa's sake, he wants to get things back into a more controllable position for him. I mean, that game 1, he looked stellar. He was able to create a lot of opportunities, so just needs to get back to that spot where he's not on the back foot, because if there's one thing that you can really see standing out for Hellraiser, it's that he has that killer instinct. He's not afraid to dive in and just make that right click on your tech units and just hope for the best. And it usually works out because he's got that sense about him, and we're seeing that just look so damn good for him in this match.
Stargate versus Stargate, that is obviously a high variance situation to find yourself in. No matter how many times you practice this, there are just certain things you kind of have to do based upon instinct and very little information. Will it be Oracle versus Oracle? Will it be Phoenix against Phoenix? Or will it be Oracle versus Phoenix? And on which way will you find yourself? That's kind of the big question here. MaNa's Stargate is going to finish up just ever so slightly quicker, and he's doing a good job, obviously, in doing this whole blocking thing. But Hellraiser opens up Phoenix, and this is annoying for MaNa. But MaNa is still just going for the Oracle. He saw the Phoenix though, right? I'm not crazy. No, he didn't actually see that yet. That is not vision he has. We do know that Hellraiser knows about an Oracle because he can clearly click on that Stargate on the other side of the map. So if I was Hellraiser right now, I would immediately rally my Phoenix to the other side of the map, exactly the way that he's doing. And you try to find that Oracle way before it even makes it past the halfway mark.
Yeah, that scout up. And that makes it, of course, he's very, very unlikely to be leaving that Phoenix somewhere where he'll get caught off guard, or he can at least probably put stalkers. He does have a shield battery finishing in his main, so maybe relying on that as well and just trying to catch whatever comes out next as that Phoenix for Hellraiser goes directly into the main base.
Yep, that's actually kind of smart because he just wants to see if MaNa's keeping his Oracle at home. MaNa was taking a weird route. Now MaNa makes the Phoenix. That is honestly a very risky decision. Now he already has one. He's going to make a second one. So Phoenixes will start fighting Phoenixes in the center of the map. But MaNa has to know that his opponent has more Phoenix. MaNa's going to lose his Phoenix. Does not kill the Phoenix. And is now forced to recall. That was adventurous video gaming by MaNa, who I guess did not know that Hellraiser did not open up with an Oracle, right? He knew there was at least a Phoenix in production. But he's in all sorts of trouble now, Nate. 1 Phoenix against 3. Hellraiser could very well win this series, and another 1-0 lead of MaNa is in shambles here, as MaNa is just gearing up for some sort of Phoenix Gateway attack now. And if Hellraiser uses all his energy on lifting probes, which is what he's doing, that actually means that he's going to have a hard time battling the Stalkers and the Phoenixes at home, and maybe that Oracle in the main base. This is still actually going to be crazy.
Yeah, because the only shield battery that Hellraiser made was actually in that main base to deal with the Oracle, which has a lot of energy that's on just chilling and microwaving a while of these probes. So whether he's going to be able to overcharge that or not still remains to be seen. MaNa does kill one of those Phoenix on the tail end, however, as the rest of them have to go into the main to stop the Oracle. But then there's the lift up on the ramp. Gets the second lift up. The first Stalker dead. Second one able to get back down on the ground. And MaNa trading out some wild gateway unit battles. And that Phoenix lead comes back into play like you were talking about, Roddy, and he can just kind of neutralize this with the lift ups pretty easily.
Yeah, maybe MaNa should have dropped the Stalkers a bit early there, but this was always going to be a very difficult scenario to play from. In a way, it's not all that bad at this point, because he did force out an Immortal, and MaNa will double down on Stargates. He's going to get his second Stargate. Meanwhile, Hellraiser is building 4 extra gateways. So for Hellraiser, this is going to be a lot more about the ground army than it is about the Phoenix, as he hasn't even taken these casters. MaNa is now reading this as an all-out Phoenix war, but it's not an all-out Phoenix war. And Phoenixes can be alright against Stalkers, but only if the Phoenix are in overwhelming numbers, if they have +1 air weapons. This is a disaster scenario for MaNa, Nate.
Very, very rough spot to play from, and with that Prism coming out, we know that Hellraiser's going to want to move in. So even if MaNa decided to start that +1, unlikely to finish in time for what is on the way. So Hellraiser maybe doesn't have any more Phoenix that he's building, but the gateway units there will be very little in the way of an answer for.
Yeah, as long as we just swap in Stalkers on the side of Hellraiser, I really don't think there's anything that MaNa can do. MaNa is about to receive the very bad news that this is not an all-out Phoenix war. You can really see him rolling his eyes a little bit, where he's like, damn it, are you joking? That means that he is in all sorts of trouble. We could use a battery overcharge. Nope, battery's now unpowered, a Stargate unpowered, gateway unpowered. And I'm afraid for MaNa that this is unfortunately it. Another 1-0 lead has turned into another disaster for him. More heartbreak. He's not down and out yet, but he definitely did make his life a little bit more difficult if he still wants to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, units inside the base. Depowered the gateway, depowered the batteries, depowered the Stargate, and the probes are all dead. GG, well played, Hellraiser.